Let's talk about Golda Meir. For some, she's a national hero, right up there with the founders of Israel, their trailblazing Iron Lady. But for others, she's a deeply controversial figure. Today, we're going to try to unravel the incredibly complex story of Israel's first, and so far only, female prime minister.
So picture this. It's Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. Everything is quiet. The entire country is observing a day of fasting and prayer. And then, out of nowhere, air raid sirens just shatter the silence. A coordinated surprise attack by Egypt and Syria has just begun, kicking off a war that would change the Middle East forever.
And right at the heart of this crisis was the Prime Minister Golda Meir. So the big question is, how on earth did a young girl who fled violent pogroms in Kyiv and ended up growing up in America find herself leading a nation through one of its darkest hours?
To really understand Golda Meir, you have to start with the Yom Kippur War. This was the crisis that would absolutely define her time as prime minister, and it's the reason she was both officially praised and, at the same time, completely condemned by the public.
You know, in the days leading up to the attack, everything was on a knife's edge. A lot of her top advisors were telling her, don't worry, the probability of war is low. But Meir, she wasn't buying it. Her gut was telling her something else. The Syrian military buildup just felt way too familiar, and it gave her this chilling reminder of how things felt right before the Six-Day War back in '67. She just knew something was wrong.
To understand that gut feeling, that famous resolve she had, we've got to rewind the clock a bit. Let's dig into her early life, because her journey started a long way from the Prime Minister's office.
Her entire worldview was really forged in her childhood. She was born in Kyiv in 1898, and one of her very first memories was her dad boarding up the windows of their house because they were terrified of a pogrom, a violent mob attack. That deep-seated fear, it never left her, and it fueled her Zionism for her entire life. After her family made it to Milwaukee, she got deeply involved in the labor Zionist movement, and by 1921, she did it. She made Aliyah, moving to a kibbutz in what was then mandatory Palestine to do things like pick almonds and raise chickens.
But, you know, picking almonds wasn't going to be her whole story. Not by a long shot. People saw her leadership skills almost immediately, and she quickly moved into key roles where she became absolutely essential to fundraising and organizing for the state that was yet to be born.
Okay, check out this number because it tells you everything you need to know about her effectiveness. In 1948, the brand new state of Israel was fighting for its life. Leaders were just hoping they could raise maybe $7 or $8 million from the American Jewish community. So they sent Golda on a fundraising tour. Well, she didn't come back with $8 million. She came back with over $50 million, an absolutely staggering amount.
And the impact of that money, it was immeasurable. I mean, listen to this. David Ben-Gurion, Israel's very first prime minister, said her role as the Jewish woman who got the money which made the state possible would go down in history. Think about that. He's basically saying that without her, the country might not have even survived its first war.
And after the war, she became Minister of Labor. She later called these her 7 beautiful years. And you can see why. Her achievements were foundational. We're talking massive construction projects, building new infrastructure, and creating a national social security system from scratch. She was quite literally building a modern welfare state from the ground up.
So, after a long, successful career, including as foreign minister, she actually retired in 1966 because she was sick. You'd think that was the end of the story, right? Well, history had other plans. In 1969, Prime Minister Levine Eshkol died suddenly, and her party called her out of retirement to lead the country. So at 71 years old, she became prime minister. It just shows you how much influence she still had.
Her time in office was marked by some incredibly tough decisions. After Palestinian terrorists murdered 11 Israeli athletes at the 1972 Munich Olympics, Meir was furious. She felt the world wasn't doing enough. So she authorized the Mossad to hunt down the leaders of the group responsible. This single decision really cemented her reputation worldwide as the Iron Lady.
But, and this is a huge part of her story, her legacy is also shaped by statements that are now widely criticized. This quote from a 1969 interview is probably the most famous one. She flat out denied the existence of a distinct Palestinian national identity. For her critics, this is Exhibit A, proof of a deep dismissal of Palestinian history and their very right to self-determination. It's a massive point of contention to this day.
And all of this brings us right back to where we started, the Yom Kippur War, the single event that would cast this huge, dark shadow over everything she had ever accomplished.
Okay, so in those final frantic hours before the war, Meir faced these monumental choices. Just 6 hours before the attack, she finally gets definitive proof that it's coming. Her generals are split. Her defense minister, Moshe Dayan, is urging caution. Her top general, David Elazar, wants a massive preemptive airstrike. Meir has to make the call. And she says no preemptive strike. Why? She was terrified it would make Israel look like the aggressor, and maybe even more importantly, that it would cost them the military support of the United States, which they desperately needed. Instead, she ordered a full-scale mobilization.
After the war, which Israel won, but at a terrible, terrible cost, the whole country was traumatized. An official inquiry, the Agronaut Commission, was set up to figure out what went wrong. Now, the commission didn't blame Meir directly for the intelligence failures, and as you can see from this quote, it actually praised her for making that critical last-minute decision to mobilize the reserves. They said she acted wisely.
But an official report is one thing. Public anger is a whole other beast, and the public was furious. Even though her party technically won the next election, the feeling that she had failed to protect the nation was just overwhelming. She felt the weight of it, calling it the will of the people. And in 1974, Golda Meir resigned. She said she just didn't have the strength to carry that burden anymore.
So, after all that, where does it leave her legacy? Well, it's a study in contrasts, really. A complex picture filled with both deep admiration and really sharp criticism.
This really breaks it down, doesn't it? On one side, you have this giant of Israeli history, a founder of the state, a trailblazing woman on the world stage, a super effective minister who literally built a nation's social safety net. But on the other side, she's forever tied to the intelligence disaster of 1973 and fiercely criticized for her views on Palestinian identity. Both of these things are true at the same time, which makes any simple judgment of her pretty much impossible.
So her story is just not simple. She was a pioneer who shattered glass ceilings, a politician who built a state, and, for her critics, a figure whose words and actions caused lasting harm. Pioneer? Politician? Pariah? Which version of Golda Meir will be the one we remember? Well, that's a question history is still trying to answer.